Hi, everyone. My name is Andrea Cardona, and I am a developer at IBM. I joined IBM about 6 months ago, so earlier this year, and I more recently joined the Enterprise Design Thinking team about 3 months ago. I wanted to kick off today being the first video of a 5-part video series that I wanted to do, basically around Carbon design system. For those of you who may not be familiar with what Carbon is, it's IBM's open source design system, basically what it says here for products and experiences. It has just a huge wealth of contributors, both internally at IBM and externally, anywhere from designers to developers, contributing to the overall system, providing feedback. And so I highly, highly recommend you all go onto the website here, play around with it, check it out. Yeah, it's a great just overall tool, resource, and as I mentioned, has a really large community around it. Because I joined IBM not too long ago, and our team is actually now integrating a new version of Carbon V10 that was released a few months ago, I wanted to make a video series that walked through the Carbon tutorial that was released, I believe, about a month ago, just to kind of, familiarize myself with it, but also hopefully be a resource for others that are doing the tutorial and following along with the steps and might want to supplement this video series as a resource, really. And so I'm hoping kind of with this to maybe work through any hiccups that kind of come along, as I mentioned before, familiarize myself with Carbon a bit more, and hopefully in the process help answer any questions and be, just another resource for others looking to get involved in this open source community. Awesome. Okay, so as I mentioned, the Carbon team released a tutorial, so it covers 5, basically broken up into 5 steps, kind of like 5 modules, I guess you could say. And today we will be kind of going through the overview and then going into step 1, which is installing Carbon. So yeah, let's get started. So the tutorial overview. Okay, so it looks like the audience, let's see here, intended for people with all amounts of web development experience, and cool. So this is great. It seems like it'll be catering to, anyone from a bit, like a smaller amount of experience or less amount of experience, goodness, to those who are interested in kind of playing around with Carbon and have maybe a lot more experience. Some of the prerequisites, I guess, just to kick off, is that we will be using React, ES6, and GitHub. For those of you who are IBMers that are watching this video, we will be using our personal GitHub accounts and not the enterprise GitHub accounts attached to your IBM email. And okay, and then here is a preview of what you'll build. This seems super cool. Okay, so it looks like we'll be playing around with different components. Awesome. Here are the prerequisites, and this tutorial uses Yarn for dependency management. I did already go ahead and install Yarn. They have provided links here to kind of show you how to install it, what the commands are, and basically, I guess, talking a little bit about what Yarn is as a package manager. Let's see. I believe This is, let's see. Yeah, it seems like these are just like the commands that you would run in your terminal. And perhaps if you already have Yarn, just checking kind of what version you have to make sure it will be compatible. Okay, and then it gives us an outline. So installing Carbon, building pages, using APIs, creating components, and then deploying to the IBM cloud. Awesome. Okay, this seems straightforward enough. So let's get started into installing Carbon. There were a few steps that I kind of went ahead to do, just forking, cloning, things like that. I also had to add an SSH key, so definitely recommend kind of getting those steps out of the way. But it seems like the goal for today is that we will be building this. Let's look at the preview. Oops. Okay. So we should be kind of toggling between the repo and then the landing page. Cool. And, oops, sorry, let me go back. Oh, there we are. Okay. Let's see here. So this is the link for the actual repo that you're going to be forking and then cloning. And these are the steps. And you will also add an upstream to the project as well. Okay. Okay, this is kind of the step that I am at now. But one thing that I do want to check is that my repository remotes are what they should be. So I am first going to cd into Carbon tutorial. Awesome. Okay, this all looks right to me. It matches what it should look like. Awesome. Cool. So now I'm going to jump ahead to build and start. I believe the command is just yarn start. Your default browser should open up a window that says Hello Carbon. Okay, so this is kind of what we're expecting, hopefully. Let's see. Cool. Let me slide this over to sorry guys, let me see a second here. Hopefully I'm savvy enough to edit this out later. Awesome. Cool. So this is what we should be expecting. Hello Carbon. Perfect. Let me exit out of this just so it doesn't confuse us. Awesome. Let's move on to the next step. Install Carbon. Even though we installed existing dependencies, we've yet to install the Carbon packages. Okay. So it looks like we'll be installing these three things: component styles, React components, React icons. Stop your development server with Control-C and install Carbon dependencies. Okay, I'm going to use this icon to copy the command line, for the command line. Yarn, add Carbon components React. So three things that we are adding. Awesome. While that's installing, I'm just going to read what our next step will be. Install and build SaaS. Awesome. Let's see. Oh, okay. This is one issue that I ran into a little bit before. So just like making sure that your node version is compatible with Yarn, with the project. So it expected version, it seems like greater than, okay, so right now I'm running on 8.94, so I'm going to switch to have my node version point to a, a larger version, or a more updated version, essentially. So 1 second here. Like it's NVM, use, just use this one. Awesome. And I believe to check your node version, it's node. Awesome. Okay. So I'm going to run that previous command again, which, as mentioned, is installing Carbon Components, Carbon Components React, and then React icons. So this is the most recent thing that we installed. It looks like it installed perfectly fine. Now we're going to install and build tests. Awesome. So this is the command that we're copying. We need to run fast build as the carbon styles are authored in SAS, so run the following. Okay. Just kind of, sorry if I tend to read and mumble. Awesome. While that's doing that, let's look at the next step. To avoid having to add the tilde prefix when importing SAS files from Node modules, create a .env file at the project root that contains, okay. Awesome. Let's see. End of loan. Hopefully it doesn't yell at me for that. Okay, let's hope that works. And then start the app again. This is for Windows. Okay, so we're moving on to the next step, which is then start the app again. If your app's currently running, you'll need to restart it for the new environment variable to be used. Okay, so I'm going to close this. So the app looks as it did before. Next, let's prepare our app for a SAS build. Okay, so let's just run it again. Then in index.js, update the index.css file, import to index. Okay. And then in the index, okay. Okay, so that'll make sense. We just changed the import name to make sure that it matched the file. Why is that? Did I not do that correctly? Seems like it didn't. 1 second here. Refactor, rename. Do refactor. Awesome. And this should be, okay. I think now it changed. Before I probably didn't say something. Weird. Okay. Next step. Import carbon component styles. Okay. So now we're going to go to in index import the carbon styles by adding the following at the top of the line. I'm just going to copy it here, and we're going back to this file. Is that what it was? In index, import the carbon. Okay. Copy that. Once you compiled, you'll notice the carbon-based styling is applied. Oh, okay. So some styling did change here. Awesome. Because any change to index.sas will recompile all of the carbon sets, create an app.css file in the source directory and in the app.js import and in app.js import that new file. Okay. So next step. We are going to create an app.sas file in the source directory. In the source directory and in app.js, import that new file. So we're going to copy this command, and we're going to basically import this file into the app.js. Okay. Seems simple enough so far. Here's our app SAS file that we just created in the source, and we have now imported it into the app.js file. Note, to optimize our SAS compile time, we'll be adding app-specific styling to app.sas and only modifying index.css when necessary. Okay, it's good to note. Next, we'll import a button from Carbon to test our dependencies are working properly at the cool. So we're going to be copying this import command, and we are adding it to the top of our app.js. Let's see if it tells us where we want the button to be. In the app component, return, I'm just going to quote this. Okay. In the app component, return, you can now replace this code with this code. Okay, cool. So I'm going to copy this, and we are basically going to replace everything within the div with a button. So hopefully that recompiles. My editor's screaming at me. There it is. Ooh. Congratulations, you've imported your first component. Awesome. So now we're going to add the UI shell. We'll create a React component called tutorial header to use with the UI shell carbon component in the source directory. Create a components directory inside a tutorial directory, tutorial header directory. I have done this already, but I'm going to, from here, create a tutorial header. Awesome. And then these are the 3 files we'll be creating within the tutorial header. is our third file within the tutorial header. Whoops, what happened here? Okay, so just to recap, we created a components directory, within that a tutorial header directory, and within our tutorial header we created three files: tutorial header.sass file, an index.js file, and a tutorial header file. The next step is in the index.sass file, we will add the following feature, which is the feature flag above the carbon styles. Okay. This is because our UI shell is experimental mode and the styles need to be manually imported. Okay. Next, in the app.sass file, we'll import the our tutorial header styles. So I'm going to copy this import into our app.sass file. Next, we're going to import and export the header. In the index.js within the tutorial directory, we'll import, and export this component. So, again, copying these two lines of code, importing and exporting the tutorial header component. Now we'll import our Carbon UI shell components into tutorial header.js. So it looks like we are importing a few different component styles into the tutorial header. Copying all of this. And then note, it's important that the tutorial header returns the Carbon header as its containing element, as we'll later be rendering tutorial header in app.js. These components need to live one after another for the UI shell to properly render. Okay. So far, so good. The next thing that we're going to do is import icons. And it looks like we'll be adding them to our tutorial header.js file. So I'm copying these three, looks like different icons from the Carbon icons React elements package. Okay. Then we need to add the header global action component instead of the header global bar, where we will add our icons. Awesome. These represent actions in the header a user can make. So it looks like we'll be replacing this line or this component I'm going to copy all of these lines of code that will now be using the 3 imported icons. And I believe it's a global, yeah. Awesome. And it says render the header. This is our next step. We'll render our UI shell by importing tutorial header component and content into app.js. Okay, so it looks like we've now imported content and tutorial header. Our return currently just contains a button. Let's update that to include our imported components. It should look like the following. So it looks like now we'll be using our tutorial header and content imports. Awesome. Oops, don't need that. You should now see a styled UI shell header and button below. Okay. Woo! Look at that. That's awesome. Okay. The next step is creating pages. Next thing we need to do is create the files for our content. Start by creating a folder called content in the source directory. This should be a sibling of source components. Okay. So I actually did that just from when I created the components directory. So I have that here. And it looks like we'll be creating a landing page directory and 3 files within that, similar to our tutorial header directory. This is the first file within our landing page directory. Okay, so we have now added these 3 files into our landing page directory. The next thing we need to do is create the following files for the repo page folder. Okay. And they're both going to fall within content. Sorry about that. I believe it should be repo page. Awesome. So we added 3 files to our repo page directory: repo page, index.js, and repo page.js. Perfect. Next, we'll set up Sass. We'll import our content Sass files in app Sass like so. Okay, so we'll be importing the the 3 Sass files that we just created, both the tutorial header Sass, the landing page Sass, and the repo page Sass, are the 3 things that we will be importing into our overall app Sass file. Okay, so we just added 3 new files to our repo page directory. Set up content Sass. Next, we'll import our content Sass files in app Sass like so. Okay, so it looks like we will be adding the 3 Sass files that we just created into our overall app Sass file. So this will be tutorial header, landing page, and repo page. Perfect. Next up, import and export content pages. So let's first import and export the landing page. So we're going to our index.js file for the landing page. Awesome. I'm just going to close out some of these. Sorry, they really bother me when they add up like this. Okay. And then next in landing page, we'll create our component. So I'm going to copy this code. We are importing React from React, and then we're exporting the landing page component. Yay! I love all the code. We'll repeat this process with repo. That makes sense. So we're going into our repo. It's not where I wanted that. So as before, we're importing, exporting within the index.js file. So we are now going to create the components. So going into, did I miss this stuff? No. Okay. We're going into the repo page. Okay, let's make sure I did everything. Awesome. We've just created our content pages. Next thing we'll need to do is render them with our router. So we will add routing. We've updated our app to render our header, but now we need to add routing functionality. To do this, we'll need to install React Router DOM. Yay! Go ahead and stop your development server. Okay. Looks like this is the code that we'll be doing for installing React Router DOM and then restarting our application. First, we need to, oops. Sorry, the server's starting again. Okay. Next, First, we need to wrap up our app in the router component. This makes sense. In the root index.js, add this following import. So we're going to copy this line of code, and then we're going to go into our index.js. This one. And let's see if they want it in a specific. Let's just actually copy this. So what we did here is we added the router, and then we wrapped our entire app in the router so that it now has router functionality. In order to render our content pages, we need to add the following imports in app.js. Okay, so we just finished adding the router, and now we'll add the imports of landing page and the repo page components. Oops, sorry. Where did they want this? Sorry, I don't think anywhere specific. This allows you to use your page content components and writing components. Next thing we'll need to do, is add what we're returning. I don't know why I always highlight in the copy. I'll just keep pressing this button. So now inside content, we're going to add the following code. Do they want the button still there? We're deleting the button component. Okay. And we'll also remove the button import. Okay. After that, we'll need to do a quick couple fixes to the UI shell to have it work with the React router. Add a link import in the tutorial header.js. Okay, we're going to add that in tutorial header. Where is tutorial header? There it is. Actually, I'm going to move this to here. Instead of the default anchor elements to prevent full page reload when navigating to different pages with React Router, to use link, update the header name component to use the element prop and replace href with 2. Okay. So what we did here is we replaced this code with now adding the link import. And let's see what our next step is. To do the same with the component that contains href equals repos, updating to, okay. Oops. Header menu item. Header menu item. Where is it? Oh, there it is. You should now have a working header. Okay. I mean, it seems like we did. I'm going to reload this. Ah, yay, it works. Oh, that's so awesome. Okay, cool. So now we're toggling with the React router functionality between our landing page and our repo page components that we created. That's so cool. And submit a pull request. Okay. We're going to submit a pull request to verify the completion of this step. We have a CI check script defined in package.json that verifies file formatting. Okay. We typically also, let's see. So let's try and run this. Oops. Now, if the CI check is giving an error, it's likely that some of your source files are not properly formatted. This could happen if your text editor isn't formatting with prettier on state. Okay, so it seems like when it ran, it didn't throw any errors. So we're going to do a git commit and push before we can create a pull request, stage and commit all of your changes. So this is the format and the syntax that they want us to follow. So I'm just going to copy, but it looks like we're adding all, we're committing, and then basically just adding this formatted content. Oops. And then push to the repo. Okay. Finally, visit Carbon tutorial to compare and create the PR. All right, y'all, so I just finished the first step of the Carbon tutorial, and I had a lot of fun in this first step in building out some of the components. Just to recap, this is what it should look like. So we've implemented the UI shell. You should have the functionality to toggle between both the IBM Carbon tutorial and repositories up here in this navigation bar. It should also change the content down here. So we should have repo page when you click on repositories and landing page when you click on the IBM Carbon tutorial header. And I basically wanted to just kind of end this first video on some final thoughts, tips and tricks. So one, making sure your Node.js version is equal to 8.10 or greater. I was working on a previous version of Node, and so just ran into a little bit of trouble there. And then for internal IBMers, making sure to use your personal GitHub account, so not your enterprise IBM account. And then two, with any questions, reaching out to the #Carbon tutorial Slack channel, which is currently living within the IBM front-end Slack workspace. They are incredibly active on the Slack channel. The Carbon team is really dedicated to answering any questions, providing advice and feedback. And yeah, don't hesitate to reach out to them with any questions. It's a great community. And then last but not least, this is what your final pull request should look like for step one. There's very detailed syntax and how they want the PRs and the commits to look, but also making sure that your base is Carbon Design System : React step one. So that's the base for your PR. Last but not least, if anyone has any feedback, even just for me on these tutorials, I don't make tutorials often, but I tend to navigate or gravitate towards videos when I am trying to learn a new subject or just, curious about a new subject. And so really wanted to make this video series to hopefully be a solid resource for others that are stepping into the tutorials. But yeah, overall, I had lots of fun, and I will be starting step number 2 fairly soon here and releasing videos for the following steps as well. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for watching this, and feel free to comment if you have any questions. More than happy to answer them as well.